Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life.
Okay. There we
Good
go.
morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest today is Renaii West, and she has written a book, The Wrong Side of the Flame. What does she mean? Well, we're going to be talking about today about the carnival world, including Renaissance fairies, belly dancers, fire performers, and more. She says Brigihd LaFlamme, belly dancer and life performer, is an undisputed leader of the tight-knit group of friends that she has dubbed as fire buddies. When they are not performing at Renaissance fairies or other events, they can be found enjoying alternative forms of adult entertainment activities, local kink-orientated venues. When one of the fire buddies who has recently distanced themselves from the group dies, she has trouble accepting the official story of a tragic accident, becomes determined to learn the truth despite the challenges and discouragement she faces. Dragging her friends into this journey, she picks up a few ones along the way and discovers the darker side of ambition, talent she never knew she had, and the values of friendship. So, The Wrong Side of the Flame, which Curtis Reviews praise as a literary of pyrogenics,
Mm.
capturing the intensity and the vibrancy of the subject matter. And it explores the lives of belly dancers and fire splitters and dominatrix and characters drawn from the experience as a professional ballet dancer from the vibrant culture of the Renaissance fairies. These characters are of their unconventional relationships. Ren explores them, stepping beyond the comfort zones, a challenging leap for many. Alongside her work as an author and a playwright, she teaches performing arts where she passionately instills the transformative power of the arts in her studies. She's also written another book as well, Death by Chaos, which we will also talk about today.
Mm.
But let's talk about this one. Welcome to the show, my dear.
Well, thank you. And if I can brag for a second, something I just found out this past week. The Wrong Side of the Flame did receive a second place Book Fest award.
Oh, wonderful,
And
wonderful.
so I'm very excited about that.
Yes. And
Yes.
I love the topic,
Mm.
because when people think of entertainers, they think of high-paying actors or
Yes.
musicians, right? And they don't understand all the other entertainers that are kind of keeping the system going and have been there pretty well from the beginning of time.
Mm.
And the entertainers that aren't in the, you know, you won't find them on Entertainment Tonight or anything like that.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and it's a kind of entertainment that maybe some people fall into, but some people are drawn into,
Oh, yes.
right? So tell us why this particular side of the topic that you wanted to write a book on.
Well, I myself have attended many Ren fairs over the last few decades, and I also was taking belly dance classes and then became a performer, and then is both an independent dancer and as part of a troupe. And some of my best friends were people I met through belly dancing and then through the Renaissance Fair and through other like street fairs. And then we got invited to perform at some of the adult venues. And then that was a rather interesting thing to observe. And I just sort of became fascinated by these people. Like you say, they're not the high-end
Hmm.
entertainers that people think of. They're not the Tom Cruise and
Yeah.
the Julia Roberts. And the two of the characters in my book, they're twins, are based on twins that I actually met. And as one of them said to me, he knows he lives in poverty because his job is going from Ren Fair to Ren Fair, juggling and doing street fairs. He makes enough to get by. He realizes he probably will never support a wife and children.
Hmm.
That's his choice.
Yeah.
Don't feel sorry for him. He is rather happy doing that.
Right.
And same with belly dancers who somehow are always looking for a new gig, a new job, and a way of promoting. And they're fascinating people because they really are doing it for the love and
Yeah.
the excitement. And that, and you don't see them in very many books, or when you do, they're usually losers. They're the
Mm.
people that the main characters make fun of, or something, or they're creepy or something. And I just thought they're a wonderful group of people, and it's a wonderful environment. And I think I just wanted to write more about them. And
So you wrote it, just you chose to wrote it as a fiction using factual things that
oh,
you use. So
yes.
a
Oh,
faction.
yes. Yes, definitely. I mean, the names have been changed and a lot
Hmm.
of changes have been made.
Yeah.
People who have read the book would think, I kind of remember where that's inspired from. In fact, if I can jump to my other book in a second, I just recently went to a college friend reunion, and one of my friends said, I saw a little bit of our college experience in that book.
Well,
So,
that's what,
yes.
artists
Uh,
draw from, right? If you,
yeah.
I remember, was it Meryl Streep?
Mm.
Somebody is saying that she's a thief. She watches everyone and be careful because that character will end up in a movie,
Oh,
and it's the same for an author. You come
yes.
across something that, well, that's intriguing. That would make very interesting chapter or a
Or
character, right?
or somebody says a great line and you think,
Mm,
I got to write that down. A character's going to have to say that at some point. I mean,
yes.
yes.
Yeah, and that's
Oh,
the thing. I mean, my brother's an author, has been for decades.
mm,
And, I often say to him, where a character gets into his head, but I'm
yeah.
sure with you is that, yes, you're basing this on experiences that you've had, people that you've met,
Mm.
which helps you define the characters a lot more. But do you find actually while you're writing, the adventures that you take them on kind of take on a life of their own?
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. There are times when I'm thinking the story's going to go this way, when I'm sort of have an outline in my head. But as I'm writing it,
Hmm.
it just goes that way. Or I realize I'm missing a step.
Ah,
I'm not, I need to add something or I need to figure out how we go from here to here because if I can't figure it out, the reader's not.
yeah.
And so it definitely, and if I give any advice to people writing, sometimes when I'm having writer block, it's just get there and just write, even though it's horrible, because somewhere the muse comes
Mm,
in or somewhere something takes an idea just takes you there. Just the fact that you're writing something. But
yeah.
no, definitely the characters do develop and the
Mm,
plot does develop as I'm writing it.
hmm.
So,
I know a lot of writing things is the name of every chapter you're going to write in, content for every chapter. And I think, that might be good for a how-to book. But,
mhm,
when it comes down to a thriller or a story or something that's taking you on a journey, especially when it's based in reality, is that what we want as a reader, we want intrigue. Right, we
mm,
want to know, is this could this be true? Is this really what's happening? Because we want that wonderment and we want
yes,
to be taken on a journey. And if that flow, as you said, if you get a writer's block or you have a misconnection, people can get stuck on, but that doesn't make sense. How come suddenly they're there? How did they get there?
mm,
And it can cause them to get stuck on a scene and then break the flow of the story. You want it where
yes.
people can't put it down. You're eager for,
Mm.
the next chapter. Where are they going now? And
Oh.
when they put the book down, to feel that they've been on an adventure as well.
Oh, definitely. I want them to like my characters and
Mm,
root for my characters or realize this person's not a very nice person. And we're not going to make excuses for him.
hmm.
It's not a nice person.
Yeah.
And and so I do want them to embrace the characters and
Hmm.
enjoy the characters because I sort of write characters that I would enjoy, and maybe they are based on people that I have met. And
Hmm.
so maybe it says something about me that I have met a lot of people that I like, I guess.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
diverse too.
Yeah.
Again, everybody stereotypes, and
Yeah.
it's like we have to actually understand that the Carnival was
Mm.
around before TV or movies, right? It was
Yeah.
theater stage, it was carnival, it was the entertainment that there were nomads because off they were. Next,
Oh,
next, next, only as good as the next booking. But why did they do it? Well, why does an artist take up a
Mm.
brush and have to express themselves on canvas because that is their gift to share. The fact that poverty is constantly knocking at their door shows us as a society and what we do not value in the
Yes.
gift of others.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And everybody just thinks every person in the industry is a millionaire, and they
Yeah,
forget it's just the top echelon. And they also forget that, well, I've taught my children well, that if you see a movie you like, there are hundreds of people that help make that movie.
yes.
And one time when my son was watching a movie with some of his friends in a theater, and the credits started going, and his friends stand up, they go, "Aren't you going?" And he said, "My parents taught us that a lot of people make their movies, and the least we can do is sit through the credits and look at their names."
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? Oh, and he sat down. And then, of course, Marvel started doing those little skits in
Yes,
between the credits. But
yes.
I want you to know we always watched the credits. And I can't say I memorized every name,
No,
but I felt I understood these
it's
people.
respect.
It was
Yeah.
respect.
Hmm.
And
Mm,
I think, and I just truly respect the people who are not in the limelight, but
yeah.
who contribute so much. And
How does that person become the limelight? Like cameraman, lighting man, makeup, costume, scenery, location, editors, booking agents,
yes.
catering, this, getting people back and forth to set, etc.
Oh, that's
The list,
important. Yeah.
list goes on and on
Yeah.
and on, and like that person's limelight that we worship, they would not have that limelight if it wasn't for everyone else setting the stage for them. Never mind the
Yes.
writers who've written
Uh,
the great script for them, right? So, yeah, I
definitely.
think if we if we encompass the whole when we look at something,
Mm.
and as you said, just when you look at some credits, and you can see this if you're watching a movie on Netflix or anything like that, because you suddenly see 5 minutes to the end, but the movie's come to an end. It's going to take 5 minutes just to show all the credits,
Yes.
right? So, and it's about let us honor those people because for those people, they've either trained, right, or
Yes.
they've worked hard to get into that position. Um, it's a hard gig themselves because they're only as good as the next movie or TV show
Oh,
or event.
definitely.
And it's never guaranteed 9 to 5, and it's something they're very proud of.
Yes. But we also joke, my family and I, we joke if you watch a classic movie, the credits are like 30 seconds because nobody got credited back.
No,
So
no.
it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful today to see the credits. Yes.
I
And
mean, you've got people that are, the location masters. I mean, they're just driving around looking at places for that, that
mm,
scenery, that right house, that right location, that right this and that, and all the monotony of just driving around looking for that
mhm,
perfect place that fits, within the story. I mean, these are basically forgotten people. And
yeah,
so even in the Carnival, you've got the people that are blowing the fire, that are doing the trapeze, but what about all the people that are setting up the trapeze or the
yes,
background, or they take the tent down and then up in the next city. It takes the village to put
it
on a full
does. It does.
performance.
And I think it's very important that everybody respects each other and
Mm,
respects. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Everybody is an important piece for the big picture.
yeah.
So I definitely. And so, no, as I said, I just love that environment and these people. And I found them interesting. And I just sometimes was bothered by how sometimes they weren't presented in books or they were
Mm,
presented in such a negative way. So
yeah.
hopefully people will read these and think, oh, these are fun people. They're a little offbeat. Yeah, they don't live a standard life. Or in some of my characters, they might become an accountant during the week, but they're at the Ren Fair or they're belly
Yeah.
dancing on the weekend. So yeah,
Mm,
they found a way to, pay the water
balance.
bill,
Yeah.
but they're still, practicing their art form. And I do think if you have a talent, whether or not you make a career in it, you should never give up your talent. You should
No.
find a way. If you have a beautiful voice, sing in the choir at church, do something.
Mm.
So that's my feelings.
You're given a gift for a
So,
reason. All
Yes.
right. And the I'm always drawing an analogy of the orchestra is that, our self-discovery is what instrument are we? And how well
Yes.
do I play it? Now, yes, I can be a soloist and I can play very well, but however, when I join an orchestra and each and every one of us step up in our glory and choose to play harmoniously together,
Mm.
that's when you transcend. That's when the
Yes.
music really go. But an orchestra isn't a whole load of droids just following some notes. It's the passion and conviction of people who have mastered their art, coming together in respect of each other to create a piece
Mm.
that is so invitational. And so, there may be the main soloist, but that soloist is nothing without the support of the orchestra.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember a few years ago, my daughter, God bless her, got us tickets to the local production or the touring production of Hamilton,
Hmm.
which are very hard to get, but
Yeah.
she got us and good seats. And while the leads were fabulous, I was very intrigued by how excellent the dancers were, the background people.
Mhm.
I mean, I was watching the leads as well, but the whole production was good. And the one moment I think I take away from this, the dancers, part of their job was saying changing the scenery while dancing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one gentleman picked up a chair, twirled around, and he threw it all the way across stage. And the other dancer caught it and then danced it off stage. And I thought, there's so many ways that could have gone wrong,
Right.
and
And
it
how
didn't.
how many times did it go wrong before they got it right?
Yes, but I just thought, okay, whoever directed this understood the idea that everybody needed to step up. And so I just found myself watching all the other people on stage as well as the leads.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, for me, what made, I mean, the music's beautiful, everything, but that's what really brought it to life to me.
And that's what
Yeah.
makes the leads look so good.
Yes.
Because if they were bad in the background, they would be drawing your attention for the wrong reason, and you wouldn't
Hmm.
be watching the lead. So again, everybody needs to step in to their own beautiful instrument,
Yes.
right? And share it there out on the stage. And you look as again, you look at a starving artist or starving author. There are people that are compelled to do what they do. It comes from their heart and their soul, their very beingness. But when we are looking at people, you see it now so much more like on AVT, America's Got Talent. Suddenly, people putting swords down their throat, or
Yeah.
firefighting, things that you normally would have seen at a carnival are now being brought onto the stage as an art form. We see it in Cirque du Soleil, where
Oh,
they
yes.
have brought this out now more. I suppose they've I don't know what would you say, elevated it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And you look at, I know that an awful lot of people go on these talent shows purely for Cirque du Soleil to pick them up,
Oh, I
watching
didn't
their
know that.
artistry,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because this is where they get exposed for Cirque du Soleil for what they're doing. They know they're not going to win, but it
Mhm.
gives them that exposure to the art form,
Yes.
right? And that's something then other people go, well, this is so beautiful. Where would I get to see this? Well, the Cirque du Soleil, but oh, there's a local carnival coming to town, right? That's something then I think opens the door to that, of looking at the dedication to the art and where they appreciate it a lot more.
I think so. I didn't think about that, but that is true. And then you think about the fire performers,
Mhm.
all the, the things that could go wrong
Yes.
and how they have to practice to get it right. And what they don't also understand, I once watched a documentary. Actually, I was judging student films at one point, and it was a film about these young teenagers who were up and coming fire performers. And you would think that was scary, but as crazy as these kids were, they also understood the danger. They knew
Mm.
where to rehearse. They always had fire extinguishers nearby, a first aid kit. I mean, they took this art form very seriously. And yet, when you watch them and you're thinking, oh, wow, and they were amazing.
You kind of
So,
think a bunch of kids, probably set fire to their house,
I
yeah,
mean, and I
because
think
they
that's
make it look so casual, right?
and I think that's something that people don't understand too. It's not that somebody just gets up and starts playing with fire, there's usually, discipline. There's
Yes.
usually been, months of years of training for this too. I mean, they
Yeah.
take it seriously. They make it look easy. They might get ambitious and try to, go the next step. But most of them are serious artists. They
Yeah.
take it. The belly dancers I know that are great, they dance quite a bit or practice quite a bit. And they listen, they look forever for to find the right drum
Mm.
beats for the right solos. And the jugglers, I mean, they're always, this is something they practice.
And it's not to say they don't have bad days. You
Oh,
know,
yes. Yeah.
it's like I always know when I have a bad day when I can't parallel park. Something about me, my
Oh, I can't
equilibrium is
parallel.
off. You
I
know?
can't parallel park anytime, but no.
So, I'm having this, oh my God, this is the third time trying to get in here. And I know it's an off day, but
Yeah.
you can't afford an off day when you're putting your life on the line,
Yes.
right? So it's, that discipline where they have to step into a different zone because if they
Yeah.
don't, they literally could put their life or other people's lives at risk.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think I've seen dancers backstage. They're not feeling well. They have this headache. Maybe they have a cold coming on. Their name's called, and all of a sudden they're
Yes. Yes.
and for 3 to 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, they can pull it off. They come backstage and I have my headache, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And I think
Yeah.
that, the years and years of training or stepping into that zone. My mum
Mm.
was a stage actress and
Oh,
yeah,
really? Yeah.
and it didn't matter kind of what she felt like once, once and she would be full of butterflies and everything else. But once it was action on that stage, out came that
Yeah.
character. And I think that is, that discipline. That is that perfection that they work on, because this is their art. This is where they come alive.
Yes.
Right? Everything else is a struggle, but this is where
Mhm.
they come alive.
Especially since they don't get a lot of support, not
Mm,
just financially, but many people think, have you thought of getting a real job?
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And it's like, well, how much did you pay to come to that circus or that carnival to
Mm.
watch as artists? All right. So this is a real job. It's just a different job. And then
Yeah.
how many artists do you have in quote a real job that souls are dying because they really need to be out there expressing their gift?
Yes.
So if somebody's getting paid for it and they're doing it from heart and soul and they've made you happy, it's a real job.
Yes. Exactly. And their lifestyle is none of your business.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. If they're living in their car, traveling every place, it's none of your business.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that, that's the point of it is to each of our own. And we don't need this judgment, shame, blame,
Yeah.
you're not picket fence, you're not this, you're not that. That is your insecurity. That is your opinion. We
Yes.
do not need you to judge something you don't understand, which of course we're seeing a great deal of in the world right now. So perhaps we actually need more joviality coming
Yes.
forth to kind of just spark our wonderment again, spark our, excitement again, lift us and elevate us in a way that perhaps we step back and look at everything else that's going on and going, really, do I want to be a part of that? No. So I think it's really important. They have a job to do and not just to entertain us, but I think to elevate us into believing what is possible.
Oh, definitely. And I think the beautiful thing about, let's say, a place like Ren Fairs, there are the professional entertainers and the vendors, whatnot, but even a person just coming for the day
Mm,
can participate. You can dress up or not dress up,
yeah,
but you can still participate. And I think it does create a wonderful sense of community
yeah.
and a wonderful sense of participation. And for a few hours or a weekend or whatever, you're part of a wonderful fantasy world.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes, especially now, sometimes we need a fantasy world.
I
Yeah.
actually find that very often in that so-called fantasy world, you see more reality.
Yes.
You have a better understanding of reality coming from that fantasy world. And because sometimes we get so bogged in what we think perceive as reality, and we need to kind of step away from it, lift up our energy
Mhm.
to a higher conscious, a higher level, and from that elevation, look at, our world and go, basically what we can say right now is where the hell is the joy?
Yes.
So we need
Definitely.
some joy.
Joy,
And if
yes.
these people bring us some joy, then yes,
Yeah.
hallelujah. Thank you.
Definitely, definitely. And it's sometimes when you are having joy, you find yourself more open to maybe a conversation with somebody you wouldn't have
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yes.
This is a person you would talk to, but maybe if you saw them at a Starbucks or something, you wouldn't think you had anything in common or
Uh-huh.
would care if you had anything in common. So no, the interactions, between everybody, because that's so encouraged, not only from the actors on the stage, but just walking around the vendors and then
Mm.
just people. Well, another thing that's a lot of fun is I've gone to is Comic Con.
Yes, yes, I was
Oh,
about to
yes.
mention that. Yes,
It's Comic
yes.
Con. And somebody once said it best. If one time I went dressed as Maleficent, I was never more popular. But every time I saw another Disney character, it
Mm.
was like a long lost cousin. I
Yes.
mean, we bonded and,
Hmm.
we had to get our picture taken with each other because, and especially if I saw a Sleeping Beauty, we would ham it up and just way of interacting with people that you wouldn't act at a grocery store or just even at a bar.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
Permission.
it
Permission
is
just to be,
permission.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And why are they so popular? And mega popular, mega
Yeah.
popular. And it isn't just escapism. But again, it's finding a reality through fantasy
Yes.
that you can live with because you actually can't live with the reality that's being presented,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yes.
and everybody, is looking for the villain or the hero or the somebody that makes us smile and warms
Mm.
our heart. We're all looking for that. Whether we
Oh,
read it in a book or watch it at a carnival or watch it on TV or go to a Comic Con, we all want to feel connected and we want to feel
mm.
safe and we want to feel heard.
Yes. And for me, I also want justice and I want
Yeah.
fairness.
Yes.
And I've many times have said, and I'm not trying to preach here, I've always said one reason I do believe in the afterlife is I like to think somewhere there's fairness because there
Yes.
isn't fairness a lot on earth
No.
at times.
No.
And I want fairness. I try to be in my own circle,
Hmm.
fairness, but I, I do like fairness. I do like justice. And that doesn't mean necessarily punishing somebody.
No.
I'm
It's
not out for
accountability,
revenge, but yes,
ownership. Yeah.
ownership
Hmm.
and or some sort of support for somebody who has been harmed.
Yes.
You know, this person, we feel it for you. We're here for you.
Yeah.
And so I do like that. I do like fairness and justice
Hmm.
along with joy and also just as you said, the positive thinking. I
Yeah.
do think there is something to be said, and I know at times it's hard to feel positive in certain situations. You really have to, you might want to think, what could possibly be positive about this? But
Yeah.
somewhere you have to find a reason to keep going and to
Mm.
reason and to not hate humanity. You may
Yes.
you may
Yes.
hate the certain situation and you may really disapprove of the actions of some people, but I don't think you can ever hate humanity.
No.
You got to,
No.
yeah,
I agree with you. And the universe gave me a saying 7 years ago. I'm going to shake you up to wake you up for you to step up and change it up and grow up. The grow up is grow up vibrationally into a
yeah,
higher conscious plane, higher hertz, but it's also grow up. Start being kind to each other. Stop
yeah,
putting each other down. All that is at fault with us as human beings is when we choose to belittle, demean, hurt, uh, ignore, inflict pain on other people. And why do we do that? Because we feel less than. Because if we
yes,
feel full, we wouldn't dream of doing that. We would boost them up. But when we feel empty, it's very easy. You want to pull other people down with you.
yes,
And this is what we're seeing right now. So it's a wake-up call for us to look at us as a human race. What have we been feeding all this time? And we've been obviously feeding it a very good diet because it's been growing, right? And does hate, does discord, does demeaning, being unkind, cruel, violent in our words, in our actions really work?
Yes.
And the answer is no. It leaves people more pain, more traumatized, and less hope of what we really can be, who we really should be, and what we really can become. And again, it's all back to what we feed, right? So we need the discipline of our carnies to what is our gift. How do we present it? How
Yes.
does it serve other people? How does it uplift other people? And no matter what discord is going on, it's just a reflection of how many people need to heal. But that healing is their choice. They've got to want to heal. And if they
Yes.
don't,
Mm.
you can't help them until there's that free will to say, I need help. But you can help yourself and all those around you that say, I want to be a part of that. And so
Mm.
that's the important thing, right? Because eventually they'll either realize they're unhappy and they need to do
Mm.
something about it, or they'll go by the way of the dinosaurs because, because hate does not win in the end. It causes a lot of disruption, a lot of pain,
Mm.
but ultimately, why do the arts, bring about, as you have in your book, something untoward happening? But obviously, the community coming together to make something
Mm.
right, that's the invitation that's out there right now. How can we put it right?
Yes. Well, I think the arts, I don't know how to say this. The arts can almost normalize something.
Mm,
In other words, you might not, well, you might not think these two groups of people should interact, but
hmm.
if you start seeing them in movies
Yes.
and TV shows, the next generation comes up and starts saying, oh, it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize we haven't had a woman's president yet. We've come
So close.
close, but I think the fact that we've had candidates after we've had
Mm,
women presidents on TV. I
yes.
think there is a little bit, it sort of made a connection in to, I think we need to start with the younger generations as each
Yeah.
generation progresses, um, as to, what is acceptable, what is normal. So I think the arts can introduce you, and I probably my mother will probably not be happy I should say this, but I'm an older person. My mom obviously older. There was sort of like certain people weren't supposed to interact.
Right.
No.
Done
And
many shows on it.
yes,
I was
and I
brought
was
up that way myself.
and I was a little girl, and I said, but Lucy and Desi,
Yeah. Yeah.
Lucy and Ricky. And my
Yeah.
mom said, well, that's just television. But somewhere, and I didn't say anything to her as a young kid, but somewhere they were proving my mom wrong. But
Yeah.
I wasn't going to tell my mom that. But that it was Lucy and Ricky, as weird as that may sound, that made me understand. Yes, they can. I mean,
It's all
does that,
about the love,
it was
It's
all about the
it's not the
love.
packaging,
And it
that's
was
the
just
thing.
my mom was holding on to something that she had been raised. And as I got
Exactly.
older, I realized every generation needs to progress. And so I've always sort of remembered that sometimes I will change my mind slowly because I start seeing a different side of an issue.
Hmm.
I start seeing these people in a different way because I really had never seen these and I only heard stories or only knew of stereotypes. And I'm saying, oh, and that does change my thinking. I mean, I can't,
Yeah.
and so
And
I think,
that's really what we need. Food for
yes,
thought.
yes,
We need to present a different point of view where we can
yeah,
converse about it. And I had 2 or 3 weeks on ago, an author who had kind of grown up in the South, but she wrote a story about a young girl who grew up with segregation and thought it was normal
yeah,
because that's what she grew up in
yes,
until she went to Portland and met another girl of color and then went back to realize how segregated it
yeah,
was where she was living and wanted to run a music shop for people of color to come in and do and what went on, because of it. But
yeah,
it's when we're inspired by the actions of others, the courage of others,
yes,
they're showing us that black, white, pink, polka dot, yellow, who cares?
mm,
It's about the character. Now, of course, the reflection of character at the present moment has just shown
mm,
total
Yeah.
other way. But what does that emphasize even more? Even more, it emphasizes of stop looking at the color of the skin, stop looking at the economics, stop looking at
Mm,
the popularity, look at the character of the person, the integrity,
yes.
because more and more and more we need to look at the integrity of a person, and it doesn't
Yes.
matter what package it comes in. So let's put that aside. And you're right, TV shows, books, all of this will normalize something that we have. I was brought up in colonialism,
Yeah.
right? My mother was brought up literally in India. And so brought up in that way. And it was my young daughter that called my mother out as a racist. And she was 10. And,
Yeah.
and my mother kind of didn't see it as racism,
Yes.
right?
And she
Because that's what she
probably
was brought
never
up.
will.
No,
No.
no, she was
No.
born in 1920. No, she just wouldn't see it that way.
Yes.
Uh, and because that was what was normal for her. But this is the thing about each generation, isn't it? We're
Yes.
entitled to look at things differently. We're entitled to try and understand why is there a difference?
Yes.
Right? We
I
can have
mean,
preference of character and of culture, but
yeah.
we can't judge every book by its cover.
No, no. And at some point too, I have to, and I do get into not arguments and discussions with others. I sort of feel at a certain age, if this person hasn't been converted, they probably never will be.
No, no.
And we have to kind of look at the newer generation. I mean, I think the newer generations are always our future, our hope. And it's not like you give up on the old generation, but we have to understand it's hard to change years of thinking,
Hmm.
years of practice. It can be done. And I know people who have because of some experience. And once again, it's usually an experience. It's usually
Yeah.
not me yelling at them or lecturing them, but it's
Yes.
all of a sudden they're in a workplace and they're working with people, they're working with a gay person and they realize, oh, you're not all freaky. You
Yeah.
you really are a nice person and you're competent. Oh, maybe other gays are too. You know what I mean? It
Yes.
and so
Yeah.
I do think
Being exposed
exposure.
to without
Yes.
prejudice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you work together, that's
Yeah.
when you really see it. And
Oh,
the
yes.
the color blurs. I know that Black Lives Matter, but I'm very much for all lives matter
Yes.
because
Mm,
if we segregate whose lives matter and whose don't, we're just
yeah.
we're just playing into the same um, same rhetoric that's going on. But if we look at every single life on this planet, including Earth's life,
Yeah.
matters,
Yes.
and then we actually understand that we're here to be of service to one another with the gift that we were given, right? To share this
Yes.
gift for the benefit of all living kind. And I'm saying all living kind because I'm talking about the animals and the critters that are
Oh,
essential
definitely.
to this planet. And it comes down to how much do we respect and value ourselves. And the my mother used to say this to me, and it took me a long time for me to kind of comprehend what she was saying. The value you put on yourself is the value you're going to be taken for.
Yes.
And it took me a long
Yeah.
time to truly understand what that
Mm.
was because I was always selling myself short.
Oh,
All right, always, because that was kind of the culture. I'm 70 years of age, so I grew up in the late 60s, 70s, and yes, we came out in the 70s with burning our bras and fighting for freedom, and then went into the 80s and 90s of misogyny again, right? So,
yes.
you know, uh, I understand the fight, absolutely. But I also understand I've still got some faux pas and things I say or things I think that are
Yeah.
obviously from the decades of living. But I married a Chinese guy.
Oh,
And so, my mother thought I was just being rebellious,
uh-huh.
right? And it's like I'm fascinated by his culture, but that's not the reason why I married him.
And not why you fell in love with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
The whole point of life is that we do ourselves a disservice if we pigeonhole everybody. You can't talk to this person because you can't do this because of that. You
Yeah.
can't do this because of that. You're the ones that are cutting your nose off to spite your face,
Yes.
right? Look at the um, Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
Oh, yes.
You
Yeah.
might not like every chocolate. That's okay. You're allowed those
Yeah.
preferences. but just be willing to explore the chocolates.
Yes. And you know what? You may not like every person you meet.
Right.
There's no reason why you can't respect them and be nice to them.
Yeah.
You don't have to, nobody says you have to hang out with everybody all the
Yeah.
time, but you can. And when you are forced in an elevator together, if you're forced working together, whatever, you can still be respectful.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, sometimes people forget. Yes, this person over there may not be the nicest person, but if he's behaving himself, you should behave yourself too.
Right.
Or I'm appalled at sometimes, and I think they're rare on these videos of what happens on airplanes. People
Mm.
just getting into these fights, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
people, you're all going up in the air, which is not natural. Let's all calm down and let the pilot do his job.
Yes, exactly.
Part of me is, come on, we don't need any chaos up here.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
watching a video today of a young woman. She's not a copper, not a Mountie, but one of those. And she went to McDonald's to get something to eat, and she paid for it. She had a receipt. She's waiting by the window to get her food, and then, why are you still here? Move on. I haven't got my food. And the person was extremely rude to her, really
Oh,
nasty. And the thing is, for her, she was having a bad day. She was having a really bad day.
yeah.
And for this person to come out and attack her like that just had her crumble. And it's
Oh,
like, I don't care if you're having a shitty day, right? It's you can say to your coworkers, look, folks, I'm having a bad day. Catch me out if I'm passing it on.
yes.
Or I need a
Yeah.
hug or love right now. Right?
I need to be left alone for a half hour.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I
Don't
or
pass it on.
yes. Exactly. And I think and we're all entitled to a bad day. And and sometimes I try to if I can see somebody's having a bad day, and it's not because I'm afraid, but I realize they don't have time for me.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And and it's something that they'll get over. It's a problem that I didn't cause. And And then I also try not to be one of those that tries to go in and fix it for them
Hmm.
because sometimes that's more annoying.
Yes, yes.
It only
But
makes,
sometimes there's a smile
yes,
straight
sometimes,
into their eyes. Have a good day
exactly.
or have a better day.
Yes,
Sometimes that's, like, oh, I've been seen, and
yes,
that's something that's really wrong with, I mean, I'm just going back to your Connie's, like, they're having a bad day, they're having a fight, they don't feel well, something's going on, they're
yeah,
up in angst with the world. But when they get out there and they perform, their very lives.
yes,
So it is, they have to forget everything and get out there and perform. And sometimes when we are, at that stage of life where we totally disagree with half the population, we've got to kind of get out and there and go, but what's my instrument? How do I play it? How am I performing right now?
yes,
Because that says a lot to the others. We can't bring out the machetes and start shooting each other. It's not going to
no.
work. We've got to step even more into compassion and kindness. Doesn't
Mm,
mean acceptance or non-accountability, but it
no.
does mean that I'm going to take the high road of love.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I think there's a quote I saw many years ago, and I'm going to butcher it here. But as far as like maybe you want to help change somebody's mind, you want them to see the light. Avalanches don't usually work. It's
Mm,
usually trickles of snowflakes. And
yes.
once again, is an exposure where they're not necessarily realize they're being preached at. And
Hmm.
I think just getting to know people or getting to, understand, oh, this really was your experience.
Hmm.
I mean,
Don't
something,
dismiss them.
don't dismiss them. I think recently I had to check myself. I was with some girlfriends. We were busy. We all went to Santa Fe, New Mexico together. And one of the ladies mentioned a place in San Francisco or somewhere in Northern California where she was from, where she doesn't go to anymore. And she said, because of all the Asian hate, she was Asian. Now,
Mhm.
part of me was like, there's no such thing as Asian. But then I realized, oh, I haven't experienced it.
Exactly.
That doesn't, and I'm so glad every once in a while my mouth shuts and it stays
Yeah.
shut, which is good. But it took me a second to
Mhm.
realize I have no business
Right.
contradicting her. I have an experience that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And maybe she hasn't because she has learned how to avoid it. That doesn't make her feel any better
No,
that she's
no,
just dodging it. The
no.
point is, and and so I think sometimes we have to say, okay, I haven't witnessed it, I haven't experienced it, but it does exist, and
Yeah.
it existed for
It's
you.
validating their
Yeah,
experience. And if we don't
yeah,
validate the now the there isn't about, keep supporting the victim in
yeah,
victimization, but it's validating their experience of what they've been through. And then, with kind of loving energy, helping them get
yeah,
through it because everything
yes,
is about going through it. Right? And I'm sure in
yes,
in your book you've got the story of how the process you go through to discover, the justice, and everything is a process to go through to what comes out in
yeah,
the end. How we go through something will dictate what happens in the end or the end of
yes,
that particular chapter or
yes.
book, right? In life.
And and I know sometimes we say get over it, and sometimes I think we do have to get over it, but sometimes there's steps in getting
Yes,
over it.
yes.
And I think, to some extent, and once again, it's just sort of being empathetic. It's just
Mm,
understanding, okay, I may not understand why you're feeling that way, but I will acknowledge you do feel that way.
yeah.
And if may, and the one thing, when I was a teacher, I was a goofy teacher. My kids loved me. But every once in a while, and I could joke around with them, but every once in a while, if I made a joke and I could tell it did not go well with this child,
Mm,
never again. I
exactly.
I understood this was not, something comfortable. And I think, you sometimes have to read your audience.
Hmm.
You do have to understand that maybe you could goof around with something about this kid, but not that kid.
Yeah.
And they're both wonderful kids.
Too
And
close for comfort or too real on one person or too sensitive or
or it hits
yeah.
home too
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever. And so I always sort of try to understand. I try not, if I joke around, it's not vicious joking. It's just,
Mm,
we're just being silly. So, I usually, it's not attacking. It's not, and
yeah.
a lot of times when I would discipline, students bullying, they say, oh, I was just joking around. And I said, you know what? Or they go, I was just having fun. And I would say, but I'm not having fun and they're not having fun. So
Hmm.
we win. You can't do it.
Right. Yeah.
Now, and I know they weren't just, unfortunately, even seventh graders can be mean.
Oh gosh.
Yes. I
Can they
mean,
be? Yeah.
yes.
I mean, kids
And
can be mean, but that's taught,
yeah,
or that's it's ignored. I mean, we can be mindful with heart,
yes,
right? And that's something we need to be is mindful with heart. Our heart always needs to be that compass. But we can also, with our tone, hold accountability
yes.
without being damning. Right?
Uh,
With my kids, they used to know, oh gosh, it's that tone. Right?
yes.
Or,
Yeah.
if they were really kind of fighting or doing anything, I'd start singing opera and they'll do anything to shut me up. So it's kind of changing the channel sometimes because they're
Uh,
getting so worked up, you need to change that channel so that it's no longer there or make them hug each other.
yes.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
and it's like, but that's the thing is that hysteria, and this is what's happened in the world right now. There's so much hysteria where people are not seeing reality, not seeing common sense, not seeing love.
Yeah.
They're just caught on this bandwagon of hysteria like a tornado, and they're so caught up in it, they don't know how to get out of it. And this is something
Yeah.
where we do have to be mindful with heart, is in our reaction and what we say, how we treat others, because otherwise it's so easy whoosh, to get swept up into
Yeah.
that hysteria.
Well, I like your metaphor of the tornado because I would say sometimes, and you might see like two relatives have a little
Mhm.
spat that should end there, but somehow it escalates because they somehow neither one of them could get off or could
The
get out of the
bandwagon. Yeah,
tornado.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
next thing you know, it's now they're
Yeah,
fighting about everything, or now they're not speaking to each other. And
for
it all,
generations.
yes, and it all began about who was going to bring the apple pie. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
so,
And this is where
yeah.
things can get out of control because,
Mm.
buttons are pushed and we're trying to be right over the other person. And it's like at some point, where do you take that high road of just
Yeah.
I beg to differ, I'm walking away.
Yes.
Right. And that's the strength and courage we need to find in ourselves. Again, we're not condoning or if we're standing up for somebody, a bully, we need to let know that that was bullying, that was unacceptable.
Yeah.
All right. But don't bully the bully.
No. And sometimes I think, and I think it's a little bit of human nature to like revenge, like in
Mm,
movies, but it's
yes.
really not a good idea. But
That's
I
where it
know,
should be. Okay, watch the movie,
yeah,
take your virtual revenge out in that way,
it's
right?
very cathartic.
Imagine the person who's done you wrong and put that face on the character, and that you've
Yes,
had your revenge now in the movie. In real
yes.
life, it doesn't work that way.
No, no. The best way is somehow to kind of, as I say, support the victim and just, make the bully feel left out.
Exactly.
Or just, in the classroom was like, you don't get to say that, not in
Yep.
my classroom.
Right.
No, you don't get to say that. And I am very proud is one time I had left teaching. When I was on maternity leave, and my school district called me and they said, we won't give out your number, but one of your former students called. He wants to reach you. Here's his number. You can
Right.
call him if you want.
Yeah.
And I appreciated the fact that they just didn't give
Yeah.
out my number. But I called him and he was one of my favorite students. But he said, I just want to tell you, I'm an adult now. And he goes, I felt so safe in your classroom.
Mm,
I just felt she goes, you were one of the first teachers that I knew that said no bullying. No,
right.
no being mean to each other. Other people sort of downplayed it or whatever, like, oh, that's not nice. You made it clear that we had to be nice to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and that just made me feel
Yeah.
so good. And
But
so,
look
yeah,
at the domino effect from that.
yeah,
Right now, he's taken that through his life. The way he
yeah,
treats other people, how he'll hold other people accountable. This is the
yes,
thing, there is always a ripple effect. You
yes.
want that kind of ripple effect. You made him feel seen
Mm,
and heard and safe, right? He wants to take that feeling on and pass it on to others.
yeah.
But that's the same thing when you're hating people, you're passing the
Mm.
hate on. So again, it comes down to that choice.
Well, if you put people in a corner or you make them feel defensive or on edge, it's like, okay, I know I have to go into this workplace or classroom or whatever, and I know this person is going to be a creep to me. You're
Mm,
already preparing to fight back, or you're
yes,
already preparing to do something. And that, without even realizing it, you might snap at another person who's just
yeah,
innocent because you're wound up.
yes,
So
yeah.
definitely the ripple effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're in the wind up stage right now,
No.
but let's talk about your book,
Okay.
Deaf Chaos.
Yes.
So what was that one all about?
Well, that one is a little bit inspired by one of my favorite Greek myths, the Apple of Discord. The four goddesses, Hera, Athena, Aphrodite, oh, and Eris. That's the troublemaker. And how they cause the Trojan War. And so
Mm,
one of me just thought, what in a modern version, what if there were four versions, but instead of fighting against each other, they work together.
wow.
And
Mm,
so I thought, how do these four women get together? Because they really would not cross paths normally. They have different interests, they have different personalities, different backgrounds. But one of the ways that I saw many times in college, people being thrown together as roommates as freshmen.
mm,
In fact, when I just had, as I said, the college reunion, there was a group of girls that remain friends to this day. They're a little bit older than me. I sort of came into their orbit later, but they were freshmen in this one wing in the dorm. And different majors, different backgrounds, different career paths, but they have remained friends and they probably would not have crossed paths. So
right.
I wanted to have four women cross paths together. And then, their different personalities, their different strengths, how they support each other, over the years. And they were definitely, fun to write.
Mm,
And because in a sense they were a little more unrealistic because they're based on goddesses. One era had to be just almost perfect. Aphrodite, she had to be a little saucy, maybe a little too nasty, whatever. And then Eris had to be a little too, couldn't take a joke, or a little, but I try to make them very positive, and I really try to create a sense of sisterhood, woman
Mm.
empowerment. And I did, and then of course the cozy mystery, and I had a way of, in a sense, getting back at the bullies,
Mm.
because it is a bully that will be found dead, at the beginning of the story, and the story is who did it, or
Mm.
what happened to him. And it is sort of like, a lot of it was he created a situation,
Right.
and
That each character
he,
felt in
he
a different
created
way. Mm.
his situation. He had many opportunities to be kind, and he chose not to.
Mm.
And so I just wanted, fun to tell that story.
Hmm.
And again, and it was fun to take him over the years. In fact, I am writing a third book that will revisit these ladies.
Ah.
They're going to be a little older now. And because it goes over a 20-year period, and to see them grow. And then I also, because in the first book, I also cover them at getting ready for the 20-year reunion, having a little bit of midlife crisis.
Hmm.
You know, like you and I went through what I call the second stage of feminism with
Hmm.
Gloria Steinem, the
Yes.
burning of the bras and stuff, and these ladies did too. And so on one hand, we're told all these wonderful opportunities, but we grew up with Leave It to Beaver.
Yes.
And so
Exactly.
it wasn't always easy to change our direction. We
No.
knew we could, but when something has been ingrained in you, it's not that easy to switch off, to switch, the
Mm.
light. And so they, I think, went through a midlife crisis of always trying to be so perfect, and now they're exhausted. And I think
Mm.
we saw some of that, where
Yeah.
women thought they had to have it all without realizing not every woman has to have everything.
Right.
And you can have a career and have a child. It doesn't mean you have to run the PTA and run
You
this
don't have to be
charity.
superwoman, right? Take the
Yes.
cape off.
And I think in one extent, we sort of made women feel every woman had to be
Mm.
superwoman. And
Yeah.
that's unfair because not every man has to be Superman.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And
We
so
don't need to prove our worth by having to do everything.
every
Yeah.
single day. And
Yeah.
so I wanted, my ladies, to kind of feel exhausted and to go through that, and then, get rejuvenated
Hmm.
only with a more balanced life.
Yeah.
Because I do think, I mean, thank God there are people who are doctors who do nothing, who work, 16 hours a day. Thank goodness for them. Or some artists who
Yes.
will, yeah. I mean, the one thing I'm always can't believe is I'll meet somebody that's an artist, and they get so into their craft, they forget to eat.
Yes.
Now, that's never been a problem for me. I always did. Or I once, I don't know who you know Bob Mackey, but he's the famous director for Carol Burnett and Cher. I once went listen to him, and he was talking about he would get what he needed to do for Carol Burnett and the Cher show on Monday, after have everything done for the filming on Friday.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I didn't have a social life, but I didn't care.
No,
I loved what I was doing. And not,
exactly.
I don't think I could ever do that. I would need a social life here and there. But, the point is there are those who will focus, but most of us need a balanced life.
Yeah, I recently
Yeah.
got a balanced life 6 months ago because I was doing like eight, nine shows a week, and I felt like I was working 8 days a week. And then I moved
Yes.
closer to my daughters, and so 2 days a week I have my grandsons, and at the weekends generally we
Mm.
do something together. So I only do 3 days a week on my shows now, and so only 4 shows a week. So the balance is better.
Do you
Um,
like it better?
I much like it better
Mm.
because I'm not so frantic because, this is the nice part of doing a show.
Yeah.
There's all the editing and the uploading and the everything else that
Yes.
has to come after that. And um, so, that's what takes the time. And where I've moved to, I've actually met a friend. We're actually going out this week to celebrate her
Yeah.
70th and my 70th. And
Well, happy birthday.
thank you. And
Yeah.
it's nice to have that socialization because my life was just completely work. And so I
Mm.
understand that balance. And we get to a stage, we don't need a lot of people in our lives and we don't need them in our lives all the time. It's
Yes.
just nice to know they're there. Let's go for
They're there.
coffee. Let's go and do
Yeah.
something. And
No,
and it's
no,
nice to have that.
there's time I'm perfectly happy at home by myself. Or there's times when I would tell a friend, "Do you want to get together for tea?" I
Yeah.
said, "Can we make it next week? I'm in a writing mood. I
Yes.
I really need to sit
Yeah.
down and write. And I know if I'm going to be with you, I'm going to be like antsy to get back to writing. But
Mm,
at the same time, I do need you in my life."
exactly.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so I do. So part of what I wanted to do with Death by Chaos is have these women who came of age of the feminism going into their adult and coming into terms their balance and
Yes.
to finding out what's important. And then the sisterhood, because they do at the end help one of them.
Hmm.
And they use their unique gifts. And once again, it was the pieces of the puzzles that they could put together. So
Right.
it was definitely a fun book to write. So
So that one, and you've got the second one, and going to that, and of
yeah,
course the other one, the fire one, is a totally different story because you're
yes.
basing it on real
New
life people.
character, well, and new
You,
characters and a
hmm
new environment. And
But you
and
like presenting a problem that's intriguing enough to invite people on the journey to
oh,
unravel
that
it.
they have to
Hmm.
have a journey. And I think my son's a little worried about me because I watch way too many true crime stories. There's
Yeah.
so many of them now. But what I like about them is that there's usually a beginning, then there's a problem, there's the journey to solve it, and usually there's a conclusion.
Hmm.
And that's what I like. And so
Hmm.
I like these stories where there's a problem and now they have to use their skills, their wits, their personalities, whatnot to go and solve it. And I do like that there's a conclusion.
That's what we're looking for in life, isn't it? And
Yeah.
that conclusion isn't the end of life, it's the end of quote, quote, that chapter in our
Yeah.
life. Right? But
Yeah.
what does it give us to take in our next phase of life?
Hmm.
Because, as I say, for me, a book, which I'm going to put this under an author's kiss as well, is, like a book is like a kiss, and it's something that can bring you life, and it's something you can refer to, something like, well, what would so and so do? Or,
Yeah.
whenever I'm reading my brother's books, he generally sends me the script, and I read it while, he's doing it, and I'll come back with something,
Oh,
this or
yes.
that or whatever. But it always is, I'm always fascinated how his mind works. And it's always intriguing about getting into a situation that
Mm.
you've got to get out of. How the hell do you do it? Like he wrote
Yes.
himself into a pit once. It took him a week to get out. And, and that, but that reflects on our own life. Oh, gosh, yeah, I got myself into this situation I don't know how to get out of. How did this character do it? What was the thinking behind it? What were the actions behind it? And that's where, art mimics life and life mimics art, right? It's
Yeah.
you write from the life perspective, but then when we're reading the art, it helps us in life.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And sometimes you get ideas from things, or you
Mm.
might get some ideas to, you know what? I never knew about this art form. I think I'm going to go try it.
Mm.
You, you know, about the fire performing. For my second book, okay, I do just for fun ballroom dancing.
Hmm.
And they do like little showcases like every couple months. There's a party and you dance with your partner and you show the rest of what you've learned. And one young man, it was a Christmas theme, and he picked up these things that were like with ornaments. And at the end, he was doing this, you know how they swing,
Yes.
they're on a string. And I went up to him and I didn't know him that well. And I said, "You also play with fire. You do that with fire." He goes, "How'd you know?" I said, "I could just tell." He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, this is your lucky day because next week or next week after, I'm taking you out to dinner because I'm writing a book now. This is when I was writing it.
Hmm.
that have fire performers, and I want to pick your brain.
Hmm.
And I learned so much from I learned terminology. I
Yeah,
learned different because I said I want somebody to read it and say, yeah, that's real. I don't want a fire performer going, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
exactly.
I
Yes.
and so sometimes, it is fun. Just meet. I've interviewed a variety of people. My brother's a doctor. I interviewed, and his wife's a nurse. I interviewed them for the second book because I needed to know, how does a person die this way? What
Mm,
happens to their body? What do the cops see when they come?
mm.
What's going to give them hints? What's going to happen in the autopsy? These are things because I never liked science. I was always a fine arts or a liberal arts person, but for this I'll know. And then I also a friend who's a former judge. I would interview him about, okay, what would be acceptable in a trial here? And based on this, what would this person be charged with? What kind of sentencing? Because I do want it to be
You
as
want some realistic,
as
this, yeah,
authentic,
yeah,
but
because
at the
otherwise,
same,
otherwise it throws people off.
oh,
Well, that,
it,
I know, then it becomes pure fiction and the reality isn't there and the comparison isn't. You want people to relate to it, to
yes,
something that either they're going through or they know somebody going through or reflects
yeah,
on life, but at the same time has enough fantasy to take them away from the reality.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. I just don't want somebody going, okay, that's just too, far off the cliff for
yeah,
me. It's like if somebody is actually pushed off the cliff and he's going down to the Grand Canyon and he walks in the next week perfectly fine. Okay, you want to know, how did he survive?
yeah.
You
That
know,
sounds very soap opera.
it,
They're
it
always bringing people back to life there.
and I used to like soap operas, and I find I'm not as crazy about
Yeah,
them because of that.
yes.
I mean, if the guy walks in, all bandaged up and on crutches, okay, I can accept that. Okay, somehow he fell on in such a way where he only just broke a few bones. But the idea that he could just walk in and nothing has happened to him, I need to know how that happened. You know?
Yeah, and for a person who just slipped off a rock and broke three bones, and my
Yeah.
son playing basketball came down on somebody else's foot and shattered every bone in his foot and
Oh,
ankle, right? It's like to think that somebody fell off a mountain or fell off this or fell off that
I,
and didn't get hurt. It's the same when you see how many people are shot, and then after they're bandaged up, there they are in a fight again, and it's
oh,
like, no, not realistic. It's talk to the veterans that have been shot or the police people that have been
yes.
shot, what's
Yeah.
their recovery time and how much could you do in this situation?
Yes.
And I love the who done it. So I love, like the Lincoln Lawyer, and I love the Porsche Legacy, and I love, those type of things that take you on a journey,
Yeah.
where you're buying the characters. And that's the thing when we're reading something. Yes, the storyline is intriguing, the storyline
Mm,
is fun, but if you don't buy the characters, you're going to put that book down, and the story's not, it's just going to dwindle away. So
no.
you want characters that you feel that you can relate to, or that you would never ever have anything to do with, but it's intriguing
Yeah.
watching who they are. So, as I said, when a good book will always make you think and refer, make you think about
Mm,
it, and in a conversation be able to refer back to it.
yeah. Now, I won't, there's a book that was relatively popular, and I won't mention it because I do think it was well written, but I just couldn't accept any of the characters.
Hmm.
And so if somebody would ask me one on one, because I would never badmouth another author or
Uh-huh.
book or whatever, because if it works for you, it works for you.
Yeah.
But I honestly went, I couldn't support any of them. I mean, you in a mystery, you have to have a villain or a
Yeah.
bad guy or something, but you also have to like or at least support some of the characters. And
Yes.
I just felt like uh, these are people I'm not going to be mean to, but you go over there and I'll go over here. And you know what? And if it works
It
for
was
other
stay
people,
away characters, so therefore I'm going to stay away from the book.
exactly. I did finish it, but even the ending was very disappointing because I just really, one, I felt somebody was not held accountable.
Mm,
And I mean, I'm all for forgiveness, second chances. But when somebody's really what I consider very horrific attitude is justified for something really minute. I just I just really could not buy. I just really could.
And that
Yeah.
reflects on the injustice in the world, is
Yes.
that not everybody has to be torn and quartered, but
But
the accountability is there. Our accountability is there. Our responsibility of our action, our words, our perceptions imposed upon others. We need to take onus of that, but we
yes.
also ask onus from other people. And what we're seeing right now is permission, to lie, to cheat, to do all the things that we've been brought up to tell us not to
Yes.
do. And then, but that becomes the reflection of, do I really want to be that? Where is my own honor, my own integrity, my own
Yes.
self-worth, my own values? Where do I take a stand? So I think that every time we see something really negative, it's like, but where do I find my positivity and take a stand on it and not get
Yes.
pushed back? And a good book will show you that. But even as you said, a bad book where you're left with, well, like everybody was bad. I don't want to be friends with anyone.
Yeah.
And of course, a good villain is somebody that you kind of like.
Well, I
Yeah.
always said that I don't, Dallas, I think
Yeah.
Larry Hagman, J.R.
Yes.
Ewing, it was one of the funnest villains.
Yes.
But at the same time, every once in a while he was brought down, and every once in a while his Bobby and Sue Ellen won.
Right.
But yeah, they can be entertaining.
Yes.
But yeah,
And also you can understand with certain people. I'm intrigued to see this new Jackal movie come out.
uh,
Where Eddie can't pronounce his surname because I love him as an actor, and it's going to be interesting. I remember, the one that came out in the 70s, and there are certain things that you kind of almost rooting for the villain, not for what they're
yeah,
doing, but just because the way they're doing it, the way they're so mysterious and pulling the wool over the eyes, and it's like, but in the end, you do want him to get caught. In the end,
yeah,
you do want him to pay for what he's done, and that's the ultimate. But the journey along the way, you want a little
yeah.
titillating.
Oh yeah. I mean, another one that was Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal.
Yes, Hannibal
Oh,
Lecter.
I mean, okay, he definitely needs to be locked up, but he owned every scene he was in.
Oh my God,
He was
yes.
he was entertaining, but at the same time,
He was horrifically entertaining.
yes, yes. But at this, but those are sort
He
of
was somebody you don't want
exceptions.
to meet in a bright light or a
No,
dark
oh
light.
God, no, 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 no. And so,
But yeah, you,
yeah,
you you were fascinated by him.
yes.
And that's the thing, is that, what makes a villain a villain? I love the
Oh,
psychology behind it. And, it's like, why do people do what they do? Because it's always coming from the very core of them. What happened to that core that made them think that it could be okay?
yeah,
I'm a true colors coach, the Myers-Briggs for personality traits, and I always have a theory on how some villains are just so cold and calculating, what color they are, and the fact that they're not operating from the core. They are not connected to heart or soul. They can't be to do what
no,
they do. Um, and then other people are from trauma and have the pain and want to inflict the pain. But it's always, I like to have a psychological view
yes.
of the villain to try and understand why they like this. Not these to shoot up movies. Brr, 20 dead. And it's like, all I can keep think of, yeah, you didn't give birth to them. So if you were the one kind of giving birth, you maybe not kind of so quick to take life. But the whole point is by doing that, just the annihilation without building
Mm,
character, without building anything else, we're telling a nation you can just obliterate your problems without dealing with them from the inside out. And I think
yeah.
a good thriller, a good murder mystery needs to have some sort of reflection back on yourself, on your own situations in life,
Hmm.
and how can you deal with them? Because you want something in that book to reflect on your own life and make you think. Food for thought.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. And in the on the wrong side of the flame, again, fire is used quite a bit as a
Mhm.
metaphor. And fire is beautiful. I mean, everybody likes to be in front of a fire
Yes.
or around a campfire. It keeps you warm. You can roast marshmallows. It's romantic,
Mm-hmm.
the candles. But if you get too close, it
Mm-hmm.
burns you. And so
Exactly.
it's just one of those pleasure and pains. Sometimes there's a fine line. I
Yeah.
mean, going skiing, going down a hill is fun. You lose control, run into a tree, not so good.
You're right.
And so there is that fine line. And sometimes, you have to be careful as to keep this flame and understand what side you're on.
Yes.
And
Don't cross the line.
don't cross the line. And
Yeah.
sometimes too much ambition or not being careful of your actions or who you're going to trust or whatever can get you on that other side of the flame.
Yeah.
And
Who
that's
else
where
is
you
going to
learn.
pay for your pleasure?
Yes.
It can put you on the other side of that
Yeah.
flame. So yeah, which I think again is that reflection on our own life, our reflection on, should I be looking at this? So, it's how many ambitious people do we know? And they don't realize sometimes, and I've interviewed them, they've owned their own companies, they reach the top and realize they're working 18 hours a day. They've got a divorce, they don't see the kids, they've got an
Mm,
expensive house, having to work to keep everything up, and they're empty and poor inside. They're bankrupt.
yes.
And the old beautiful cosmic 2x4 comes along and flattens them in some way. And from that, the invite is, can you rise from your own ashes? And how the journey that they've taken, realizing the true currency, the true enrichment and abundance in life
Yeah.
is love, is heart and soul and spirit, and that they can step into a beautiful life by sharing, by giving,
Yeah.
rather than by taking.
And I think, again, I think sort of going what you're saying is I think it's possible to be somewhat successful without squashing people along the
Exactly.
way.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're ambitious, you have to think of yourself, you have to take advantage of opportunities.
Yeah.
And at times you're competing with somebody for a job or actresses for a role. But do you really have to squash somebody? I don't think you
Exactly.
do. I,
And I think it will come back to bite you if you do,
yes,
So
yes,
there's again efficacy in everything that you
yeah.
do. And if somebody doesn't take you for that job, but they liked who you were, they're going to refer you.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
going to talk about you. But if you're a cutthroat and you're going to take whether you're given or not, people are going to talk about you in a different way, and it ain't going to be
Oh.
favorable. So I'd rather be on the side of favorable than
Mhm.
disgust.
Well, I mean, I remember some years ago, it's a long story how I got into this, but I was able to talk with people who had worked with like Anne Margaret. There isn't a
Mm.
person on this planet that doesn't love her.
Yeah.
Apparently, she was a joy to work with. She was
Hmm.
kind, she was easy, which I think helped her career
Yeah.
because nobody, and then there's some other actresses like she'll be talented. Oh, but we better be prepared for her
Yeah.
because they know she's going to
Prima
bring
donna.
problems. She's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
bring,
Yeah.
but I'd rather be an Anne Margaret. I'd
Yes.
rather people being excited to work with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other side of it, you can only sustain that for so long before it's like, no, no, we're going to hire this person, not this person,
They're
because
just not
there's
worth
too
it.
many complaints, too many costing
Yeah.
too much with the prima donnaism, and it's like, no, it doesn't matter. And how many
Yeah.
times do we see a big name suddenly disappear?
Yeah. They're just
You want
after a while
sustainability.
yeah. After a while you just realize they're just not worth it. Maybe in the beginning you think, oh, but they'll bring in an
Yeah.
audience, and we'll put up with this. But after it's like in any relationships. Sometimes it's just not worth it. And it's
And
time
then
to
then
move
you look
on.
at a young woman
Mm,
like Taylor Swift,
yeah.
who is such a giver. She gives away a hell of a lot more than any of your billionaires out there.
Yeah.
She's loved by people because of what she stands for and because she cares. And she shows that she's incredibly hardworking, very, very
Yes.
talented,
Yes.
not egotistical, but stands tall in who she is. She had to fight. Her previous guy took all her music. What did she do? She remade it. She remade
Yeah.
every single one of those numbers and took her voice back.
Yes.
These were my words. This was my song. I'm taking them back. So she's shown strength. She's shown compassion. She's shown caring. She's shown consideration. And she's showing a template for a lot of young people out there. Look how popular she is. And also, there's so many people that hate her because she is so giving caring, loving, and
Yeah.
talented,
I think when you
right? But
become popular, there's just it's almost a given. There's going to be people who are going to just resent you for no
yeah,
other reason than you're popular.
yeah,
It's just a strange thing about the human race.
you're right.
Or they're just tired of seeing you. And I know I had issues because I was rooting for the 49ers in the Super Bowl. So part of me for a moment didn't like Taylor just because her boyfriend, won the game. But I got over that.
Yeah,
But it is but no, she's definitely a role model
yeah,
of working. There's nothing wrong with recording songs that somebody else wrote, but she
yes,
writes so many of her
yes,
own.
yes,
And again, and I've not attended any of her shows, but I've heard they're very well done.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
and
And the
and
amount, I mean, we've got her coming here to
mm,
Canada. She'll be in Toronto this week, and then she'll be in December, she'll be here in Vancouver. And the amount of millions that she brings into every city,
yes,
not just hotels, restaurants, everything. So for people, it's like, yes, we love having her because we know everybody's going to be uplifted, everybody's going to be on top of the world,
mm,
and look at the economic basis on that. Now, that truly is a entrepreneurial support. I mean, I'm,
yeah.
not so into her music. It's just I'm a different generation, I have a different style of music. I respect it, but it's not on my playlist. But I
Mm.
respect her as a human being.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But again, it doesn't mean that there doesn't mean we hate the music, doesn't
No,
mean we're
no,
against the music.
no.
Um, it's just, I'm still into the Stones, the Beatles, Leonard Skinner, I'm still
Yes, and I'm very much. I interview musicians, and a lot of
yeah,
them from the past,
yeah.
and who've been in the business 50 years and 60 years, and
Mm.
it's like, oh, their
Oh
story,
my gosh.
and they're not just singers, they're singers, or the
Oh.
music producers and things like that, and rather like your artisans in the book,
Mm.
the flame throwers and etc. They're people. They are the music. They
Yeah.
they when they sing or when they write the music, when they perform the music, it is purely their heart and soul that you're hearing,
Yeah.
right?
You
And
know,
it's the same with the other performers.
one thing I find this funny. One artist I do like is Neil Diamond.
Hmm.
And when I was 13, a song came out, Solitary Man, which is
Yes.
still one of my favorite songs. And I read recently, reading an article about him, he said through years of therapy, he realized that he was writing about himself. And I went,
Mm.
really, Neil? At 13, I knew that song was about you.
Yeah.
I said, it was so personal.
Yes.
At 13, and I wasn't the brightest 13-year-old, but I
It is
went,
connected.
I
Mm.
just knew
Yeah.
this poor man at this point in his life. But he said it took him years of
Yeah.
therapy. Maybe he
Very
was
often
in
it does.
denial. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And you
Yeah.
see this. I mean, look at,
Yeah.
Robin Williams dealing with the
Oh,
depression, such a light and
that,
then such
oh,
darkness. And
that one hurt.
And
That
one of
one
my
hurt.
favorite comedians right now is Trevor Noah. Not
Oh,
only is he
yeah.
funny, but I love his equilibrium. I love
Mm.
his points of view on life. He's just, if you ever want to watch a good interview with him with
Yeah.
Jay Shetty, um,
Okay. I did
really
see
good.
him live a few years
Oh,
ago.
I'd love to see him
Yeah.
live. I would love to interview him. He's on
Yeah.
my bucket list, top of the list. I would love
Oh,
to.
he would be. Yes.
Because he's
Yes.
just like so beautifully down to earth, but at the same time so cosmic. And I just
Oh,
love his approach and his humor. Um, and just somebody that is so well-rounded, but is also completely honest of him on his struggles,
yes.
with depression, with this and that, because I think one of the reasons he left the Daily Show is just he was so tired of the Trump jokes. And, look at all the others now. They said we'd been doing this for 13 years. Can you give us a break? Can
But
we laugh at somebody else?
we were talking about, Taylor.
Yeah.
And there's part of me, and maybe because, I'm in your age bracket, so, the motherly
Mm,
part of me is like, Taylor, please take a break at some point for yourself. And,
yes.
I don't know if she needs a break. There isn't any sign that she does, but I'm just finding, there's a part of me that says, Taylor, you need to take 6 months off
Yeah,
at some
which I think
point.
she is next year.
Okay,
Because she's been doing a big tour, so I think it's a regroup. But also
yeah.
some people have, that energy. Like the more
Yeah.
she gets out, the more she energizes,
And
and it's like
they're bored
exhausts
at
me,
home.
but
Yeah.
yes.
Some of them are bored at home. And so
Yeah.
again, I just know some people that are just as I said, these people who start working and they realize 15 hours later, oh, I
Yeah.
haven't had anything to eat. I mean,
Yes.
they just, so, more,
Yeah.
I guess I've always been a little bit more balanced. Sometimes I wish I had more, well, my mother and brother are your stereotype, workaholics. My dad and I were more balanced, and you could see how they approached life.
Mm.
My dad and I have always made time for fun. My mom, bless her heart, just couldn't watch TV.
Mm.
She had to at least be vacuuming or folding clothes. She
Yeah.
just
She
felt,
had an ADD type personality.
yeah,
Yeah.
she just couldn't be sitting there because that was wasted time. In
Yeah.
fact, one time I went over, she goes, "What's your, Joe, that was my husband. What's he doing?" I said, "Oh, he's just vegging." And she said, "I just don't get that word."
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she
It's the
didn't.
and the thing there is an art in stillness and doing nothing. It's
Yes,
actually very, very important, and that's what made you such a good teacher, is that you
yes,
knew how to have the balance, the discipline, the education, and the fun, right?
yes,
And it wasn't all foot to the pedal, and then break. No, it is about going through the gears of life, right?
yes.
Yeah.
It definitely is. But I can see where some of these I don't know how people can be on Saturday Night Live for as long as
Mm,
they do. That has got to be 20 hours a day that
yeah.
to put on a show, and it's hit and miss. But I
Yeah.
would say when people complain about it, I say you try putting on a
Yeah.
show of high quality week after week and you only have 5 days to do it.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
in awe of some of those actors because I know they're not getting a lot of sleep.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes me go back to the old Carol Burnett shows and all of
Uh,
those, just,
yes. Well,
but
Bob
how
Mackie
they did,
having,
yeah,
yeah,
it's the humor that
yeah.
for them, it's been able to laugh at the ridiculousness, because not to is to go insane. So I think I think
That,
what keeps them going is the humor between each
yeah.
other and what they're doing. But
Well, I think humor has a real value because sometimes we joke about something that's really a problem, but it starts off as jokes. The jokes get a little bit more serious, and then people said, that isn't right.
mhm.
And I think humor helps get it there.
That's Trevor Noah,
Yeah.
and John Stewart to a point,
Oh, I
Colbert.
love, yeah.
Yeah, they all do it from that point of view of making fun of it because it's the only way. I was, say to American people, the only way I can watch your politics is through these comedians
Oh,
because I
definitely.
can't watch it otherwise I'm just in the twilight zone. So I have to watch it from these other people and breaking it down. I love Rachel Maddow as well. I think she's
Oh,
really
yeah.
great. So, but it's like they'll speak to the issue in fact, but they'll make it humorous, but at the same time leave you with that, uh-huh,
Hmm.
uh-huh.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
It really, humor does have a value. And
Yes.
I think it helps people who maybe are resistant to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody likes to be lectured more than they have to be or,
Yeah.
yelled at. And I think humor is a way that helps bridge.
Yes. And again, as
Yeah.
you were saying earlier about what kind of humor, it isn't making fun of someone at their
Yeah.
expense. It's making fun of a situation that everybody
Mm.
could be a part of that we can laugh at. So it's
Oh,
again,
definitely.
mind your humor. How humorous is it? I
Oh,
mean, I was watching something
definitely.
Trevor did the other day, one of his little snippets, and he was talking about him and tacos, his first experience with tacos, and the guy offered him a napkin. Well, a napkin back in South Africa is something totally different.
Oh,
And so
really? Oh,
and so the whole dialogue going back with the
oh,
guy's talking, yeah, but it'll come oozing out because it's a diaper back in South Africa. And so he's guy talking about, yeah, but when you bite it, it will ooze out. And just the sheer
oh.
comedy of it. I have to be careful. I'm an asthmatic if I laugh too hard or go into an attack. So I'm trying not to laugh too hard, but it's just that, his experience she shared back and forth
Mhm.
and just you need those laughs as a
Oh, yeah.
release. And he was making fun of himself,
Oh,
right?
definitely,
Which is,
definitely.
which is the way to do it, but without being cruel. And I think that's something, we need to be
Mm.
careful of. I love British double entendre.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely.
but it's how we can make fun of ourselves without belittling. And that's
It,
the
it,
thing.
it, it is true because, as a society, all societies, we have our ridiculousness. We
Yes.
have our good things. And, there's moments when I'm very patriotic and I want to be very solemn and respectful. But then there's times when we can kind of just sort of, laugh that off.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. And we need
definitely.
to laugh it off, because if we don't, we are going to be in trouble. So
Oh,
that
definitely.
is really, really important.
Definitely.
Well, I could carry on talking to you for hours. This has been a
Me
wonderful
too. Yeah.
conversation. And so, both books that you've got out there all could be found on Amazon.
Yes.
Um, and so, sorry, just busy looking again for the other book,
Death by Chaos.
Death by Chaos. There we go. So Death by Chaos, which you Discovery Award, which we've got up there, and
Mhm.
of course then this one, The Wrong Side of the Flame.
Which
And
also won a Book Fest award. And also
yeah,
Death by Chaos also won a Book Fest award too.
wonderful,
I know,
wonderful.
so yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations. That's always when
Thank
you know
you.
you're on the
Yes.
right track. But, the wrong side of the flame, you're talking about it, about flamethrowers and things. But, a lot of people could be on the wrong side of the flame quite
Oh,
often.
definitely.
Be careful you don't
Definitely.
get burnt, right? Just be
I,
mindful again. So,
you know what? I've always said it's okay to go close to the edge. You just don't
mm.
want to fall off it.
Exactly.
So,
Yes, it's
yeah.
it's like you put
I
your
like
hand over the
metaphors,
flame,
as
but
you
you
can
don't need to
see.
grip it.
Yes.
Exactly, exactly. So it's, don't play with fire. You might get burnt,
Yes.
right? So again, Amazon, all they have to do is put in your name, Renaii West, which is Renai
Yes.
West, Renaii West, The Wrong Side of the Flame, or Death by Chaos. And also they can find you at renaiwest.com. Again, Renaii West, West.com. And you're also on Facebook as a Renaii West
Yes.
author. So
And
they
you know
can
what?
reach out to you.
I forgot I'm at Twitter, and that would be at Renaii W, Renaii W. So
Right,
I do some Twitters here and there,
right.
or tweets
Yes.
here and there. Yes.
Yes, yes. And recommend Threads.
I am going
Uh,
to check that out. I'm really going to check that out.
um, Thank you for taking this journey. I always love
Oh,
it when authors, especially, some people like my brother was born to write. So for him, it's been a lifelong
yeah.
journey. Though he taught at school and master's degrees and all of that, writing has always been his first love. But for other people who have had different careers, different journeys, and then taking those experiences
Mhm.
and putting it into writing, is that you're bringing a flavor of life intrigue, life experience, life perspective, and life's inquiry. And,
Yes.
kind of bringing that into a book, then I feel that very often has more substance and more depth.
Oh, thank you.
So
Yeah.
thank you very much for writing and shedding light on our carnival people, because they're beautiful souls. And they are very, very gifted in what they do. And let us not take them for granted or dismiss them because they're not at the Oscars.
Mhm.
And I mean, what was the movie, The Showman?
Oh, The Greatest Showman?
Yes. I
The
mean,
one with Hugh
that's,
Jackman?
yes, yes.
Yes,
I mean, that really showed, Connie people who are being ignored and their talent, and making them celebrated
definitely.
for the gift that they are. And I think a great metaphor for life. Let's celebrate each other for the gift that we are. Right? Not
Yes.
there aren't any boxes, only those that we stand on. But there are not any boxes. Do not box us in. Do not categorize us. It is we are who we are. The gift that we are. Celebrate our gift, or don't. But don't belittle it or try and bring it
Thank
down
you.
because you don't
Yes.
understand it. Right?
Yes.
So
Thank you.
thank you
Yes.
so much for
Well,
sharing here
thank
today.
you. I enjoyed it. This was wonderful. And I wish you, a great, the holiday season's coming up.
Yes, to you too as
Namaste.
well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always saying that books are an excellent gift.
Yes.
Because it's a wonderful story, lovely escapism, but it's also that what it leaves behind. And I
Hmm.
think if you're looking at giving a gift for someone, you can buy something frivolous that they're probably going to put on a shelf or forget, or you can buy them a book that they can curl up with and they can read and take them on a journey. And so you
Yes.
can get both books. And then, I'm very much into book clubs where people have a conversation, but I'm very much into podcast clubs as well. Everybody listen to a podcast together, glass of wine, and then discuss what you each got out of it
Oh, that's
afterwards.
fun.
Because now you're actually sharing a whole perspective, not
A-
just yours.
And sometimes you think Wow, I didn't see that. Or how
Exactly.
did you not see that? Or
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
see it that way. Yes, it is
And
fun.
it opens up that dialogue
Yes.
even more. And that's more what we want is expansion of thought,
Yeah.
expansion of possibilities, expansion of love.
Yeah.
And we can do that by coming together, even just listening to a podcast or a book club. But you got to get the books first. So think of it
Yes.
first Christmas gifts, folks, and give a gift of love through giving a gift of book. So thank you so much, Susan.
And thank
And
you.
oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Until next time, folks. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tab at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.